We were talking in this show about the seven deadly sins and how prescient they were, that it's been 800 years, 1,000 years since we had the Middle Ages, and yet the Middle Ages and their scholastic philosophy understood one thing. There were certain kinds of sinful behavior, the seven deadly sins, that were much more egregious than the venial sins that many of us commit every day, and that these were the kinds of sins that could separate us from God. And when you look at what's happening in the name of social justice and critical race theory, I think we demonstrated pretty clearly that envy and pride and arrogance and sloth are being enshrined. Those seven deadly sins are being enshrined at the heart of the new pedagogy, the new revolutionary critical race theory. And so this is St. Augustine week on the Dr. Duke Show during Instant Classics, a time where we challenge this. And so we're going to challenge this with somebody who knew very much about this and wrote a little bit about the seven deadly sins in various places. It's St. Augustine, born in 354, died in 430 AD, one of the great first fathers of the church. He was a pagan. He was a man of Greek and Roman gods. He was a citizen of Rome. He was a devout attender of brothels. Prostitution was legal then in the Roman Empire, and he was addicted to it. So when he found Christ, largely through the mediation of his mother, the Blessed Saint Monica, who had found Christianity first, and she recognized that her son was too smart, too gifted, not to understand the promise of Christ. She finally convinced Augustine to look into it, and he became really the first great, outside of St. Paul, the first great Christian theologian. And so here's some quotes today from St. Augustine to keep our chins up in this time of the dominance of the seven deadly sins. Quote, he says, speaking of sin in this, St. Augustine says, "We were ensnared by the wisdom of the serpent. It was the wisdom of the serpent that caused Adam and Eve to fall, but we are set free by the foolishness of God." How beautiful is that? God loved us in spite of our sin. God saved us in spite of his just accord. God found providence when we had doomed ourselves. We made our bed, and God foolishly refused to let us lie in it. Another word for foolishness here is mercy. How about the second quote? "God judged it better to bring good out of evil than to suffer no evil to exist." How beautiful is that? That God so valued our freedom of choice, because anybody who worships God because he has to, because he's programmed to, is a slave. Our God thought it was better to let Adam and Eve fall because he could bring the redemption of Christ out of that evil. Better that than to just get rid of evil and therefore get rid of free will altogether. And how about the third quote? "Beauty is indeed a good gift of God. God has made beauty in the world." And that's a good thing. But that the good may not think it a great good, God dispenses it even to the wicked. Look, how do you know that physical beauty, being pretty, how do you know that, while it's nice, is a very low virtue? Because God gives beautiful outsides to sinners and criminals as well as he does to law-abiding, faithful people. So don't take it too seriously. This is the kind of wisdom we're trashing in Western culture. Augustine was a titan of Christian thinking, and almost everything he said 1,600 years ago is still relevant today.